The galaxy was quiet, almost too quiet. After years of war that had burned through star systems and broken countless worlds, silence had returned. In orbiting cities, fireworks still lit the skies, celebrating peace treaties signed only months ago. For the first time in a generation, people dared to dream of life without fear. Far from the shining celebrations, in the dark emptiness of deep space, Earth's rescue fleet moved carefully between the stars. These ships were not warships. Their hulls were white and silver, painted with the symbol of peace, two hands reaching out. They carried not weapons, but hope. Inside were medics, engineers, and supply crews. They brought food, medicine, and technology to broken planets. The rescue fleet was humanity's gift to the galaxy. A promise that even though war had scarred them, they would choose to heal, not destroy. The fleet was a symbol of what humanity wanted to be remembered for, not for their weapons, but for their compassion. On board the lead ship, the Solace, humans and aliens worked side by side. In the medical bay, a human nurse carefully wrapped the arm of a young alien child, his skin glowing faintly blue under the lights. The child looked up, whispering, "Why do you help us? Even when we were not your allies." The nurse smiled softly. "Because pain has no side. Because healing is stronger than war." On the bridge, Captain Marave, a woman with sharp eyes and a steady voice, guided the fleet forward. Her crew monitored the calm of space, relaxed but disciplined. Most of them had fought in the war. Now they carried no weapons. For once, they were only guardians of peace. But peace can be fragile. At first, it was only a flicker on the radar. A technician leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "Captain," he called. "I'm picking up something faint. Could be static." Mar approached. On the display, thin lines of interference danced at the edges. Too sharp to be random static, too precise to be ignored. "Run a scan," Mara ordered. The hum of the ship's sensors filled the bridge. Everyone waited. The result came quickly. Multiple unknown signatures, moving slowly, staying just outside the normal scanning range. Mara frowned. "Are they survivors? Hidden fleets?" "No identification," the technician replied. "No beacon signals. No alliance codes." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The galaxy had promised peace. But old habits die hard. Still, the captain kept her voice calm. "Send a message. Identify us as Earth's rescue fleet. State our purpose. Tell them we carry no weapons." A bright signal was sent, echoing into the void. Everyone waited for an answer. None came. Instead, the faint signatures began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, circling like shadows around the fleet. Mara's instinct screamed danger. She opened the comms to all ships. "Stay alert. Do not break formation. This may be nothing, but keep your eyes sharp." In the medical bay, alarms began to pulse softly, a reminder that something was happening. Doctors and nurses exchanged nervous glances, but continued working. The alien child looked around, frightened. "Is the war coming back?" he whispered. The nurse held his hand, though her own fingers trembled. "No. The war is over. We are safe." But even as she spoke, deep in her heart, she was not sure. Then it happened. The first explosion tore through the darkness like a burning star. A supply ship at the edge of the fleet erupted in flames, its hull shattered. The shockwaves shook nearby vessels, scattering debris across the void. Before anyone could react, more blasts followed. Unknown ships, black as shadows, emerged from the emptiness. Their weapons lit up like fire, tearing through rescue ships without warning. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Mara shouted. But it was too late. The fleet was surrounded. The bridge filled with chaos, alarms screaming, officers shouting coordinates, desperate attempts to protect the defenseless ships. But they had no shields, no cannons, no defenses at all. On the comms, voices screamed for help. "We are unarmed. We are medics. Stop firing." But the attackers showed no mercy. One by one, the rescue ships began to fall. The Solace shuddered as shockwaves slammed against its hull. Mara gripped the controls, forcing her voice steady. Get as many escape pods out as you can. Send distress signals to Earth. They must know what happened here. The technicians worked frantically, their hands flying across consoles. Message sent, Captain, one cried. But there's interference. It may not reach them. Send it again. Over and over, Mara ordered. Until someone hears us. Across the fleet, survivors rushed to pods, helping the wounded, carrying children, pushing them into small capsules of hope. Alien and human worked together, united not by war, but by survival. Another explosion tore through the fleet. The Haven, the largest medical ship, broke in half, its lights vanishing into the void. For a moment, silence followed, broken only by the static of comms filled with sobbing voices. On Earth, far away, in a command center buried under mountains, a red light blinked. A single word appeared on the screen, carried from the edge of space through broken signals. Ambush. The officers in the command center froze, staring at the word. Shock filled the room. The rescue fleet was not supposed to face danger. They carried no weapons. They carried peace. But something had chosen to strike them down. In the dark, survivors of the fleet drifted among burning wreckage, sending desperate calls for help. Their voices cracked with fear, but also with anger. Humanity had tried to heal. They had tried to show mercy. Now, with half their fleet destroyed and their healers burning in space, the galaxy would see another side of Earth. Because humans remembered every wound. And when their healers were attacked, their warriors would rise. The silence after the ambush was worse than the attack itself. In the blackness of space, burning ships drifted like broken lanterns. Some still carried human medics. Others carried alien children who had been rescued from war zones. Their cries filled the comms, mixed with static and screams. On Earth, the command center shook with chaos. Generals shouted, officers rushed to control the feeds, and families waiting in the viewing halls collapsed as they watched flames dance across the screen. Half the fleet is gone, one officer whispered. His voice cracked. And the rest are burning. But among the wreckage, a few voices remained alive. A single transmission cut through the noise, sharp and desperate. This is Captain Alara of the Solace. We are under attack. Unknown fleet. Coordinates locked. Please respond. Please respond. Her ship was one of the last intact vessels. The Solace had been carrying doctors, engineers, and relief supplies. Now it carried the weight of survival. Inside, the corridors were lit with red alarms. Medics ran from cabin to cabin, tending to the wounded. A young alien child, skin pale and trembling, clung to Alara's uniform as she moved toward the bridge. Captain, her first officer said, his face covered in blood. Shields are collapsing. Engines are failing. We can't hold this position. Alara's jaw tightened. She looked out through the shattered viewport. The stars glimmered beyond the smoke. Pieces of human ships floated by like coffins. But further in the distance, the unknown attackers moved silently, their ships black and sleek, like shadows made solid. They did not chase. They waited, watching. Why did they attack? Alara whispered. We were carrying food, medicine. No one had an answer. She pressed her hand against the console and sent another signal. To any listening fleet, this is Captain Alara of the Solace. We are survivors of an ambush. They came without warning. We carry civilians and medics. We cannot last long. Please, anyone hear us. The transmission carried across the void, bouncing through satellites, reaching Earth and its colonies. On Earth, the message played across the command halls. Mothers gasped, soldiers clenched their fists, and a single, heavy silence fell over the generals. They knew what this meant. Someone had broken the fragile peace. Meanwhile, on the Solace, panic grew. The wounded filled every corridor. Medics used scraps of fabric when medical supplies ran out. Children cried, and the air smelled of smoke and burned metal. One of the engineers shouted, "Engines are offline. We're drifting toward the wreckage field. If one of those ships explodes, We'll go with it. Alara moved to the center of the bridge. Her voice was calm but sharp, cutting through the fear. We will not die here. Prepare escape pods for the children. Get every civilian ready to leave. But Captain, her officer protested, the attackers will fire again if we launch pods. They'll pick us off one by one. Alara stared at the black ships in the distance. They had not moved since the attack. Not a single light flickered on their hulls. They were waiting for something. Her hand trembled as she gripped the console.
Then we stall them, she said.
We give Earth enough time to hear us. The comms officer turned, pale and shaking. Captain, Earth is responding. For a moment, hope lit the bridge. The sound of Earth's command filled the speakers. This is Earth Command. Hold position, Solace. Reinforcements are mobilizing. Do not give up. The survivors cheered weakly, but Alara's eyes stayed locked on the distant black ships. Something in her gut twisted. They're not finished, she whispered. This is only the beginning. Far across space, in a hidden fortress, the architects of the ambush watched the chaos unfold. Their leader, a tall figure cloaked in shadow, studied the burning fleet with cold eyes. Humans thought peace would last, he said. His voice was low, like a growl. But peace makes them weak. Now we remind the galaxy who commands the stars. One of his officers bowed. What if Earth retaliates? The leader's eyes gleamed. Let them. Their fury will only lead them into our trap. Back on the Solace, the survivors clung to life. Escape pods were prepared, but none were launched yet. The black ships kept their distance, silent and waiting. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Alara looked around the bridge. She saw her crew, bleeding, exhausted, afraid, but still standing. Listen to me, she said firmly. We may be medics, but we are not helpless. If Earth hears our call, reinforcements will come. Until then, we fight with whatever we have left. The crew nodded, determination flickering in their tired eyes. Suddenly, the radar beeped. The black ships were moving again. Alara's voice hardened. Everyone to battle stations. The enemy is coming back. And outside, in the void, the silent fleet of shadows began to surround the Solace. The survivors braced for the next strike, knowing help was still far away. The distress signal from the Solace echoed through Earth like a wound that refused to close. It played again and again across the command center. This is Captain Alara of the Solace. We are survivors of an ambush. We carry civilians and medics. Please, anyone, hear us. Every officer, every soldier, every family member who heard the voice felt the same fire burn inside them. Humanity had sent healers, not warriors. Doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, even alien children who had been rescued from war zones. And they were attacked without mercy. Inside Earth Command, the Supreme Council gathered in the war chamber. Screens displayed the burning wrecks of the rescue fleet, their flames drifting like candles in space. General Aiden Kane slammed his fist on the table. This was not war, he growled. This was slaughter. They opened fire on our medics. Half our fleet is gone. Half. Across from him, Chancellor Lyra spoke with a trembling voice. We must be careful. The galaxy is fragile. If we answer with violence, we could ignite another war. Kane's eyes burned with fury. War has already begun. The chamber fell into silence. Every council member knew he was right. The question was not if Earth would answer, but how. Meanwhile, in orbit above Earth, the Defiance prepared for launch. It was not a rescue ship. It was a warship, one of Earth's most powerful dreadnoughts, built during the last galactic conflict, but hidden ever since. Its hull was thick with armor, its cannons capable of splitting mountains. On the bridge, Commander Eric Voss stood tall, his uniform sharp and his jaw clenched. His orders were clear: protect the survivors of the ambush and deliver Earth's response. Status, he asked. All systems green, his officers replied. Weapons charged. Engines primed. Eric turned to the screen, where the faint cries of survivors still flickered from the Solace. He remembered the faces of his wife and daughter back home. They could have been on that fleet. They could have been the ones begging for help. He swore silently, never again. Set course, he ordered. We're going to the survivors. Far away, aboard the broken Solace, hope flickered like a dying flame. Captain Alara stood at the shattered bridge, her uniform scorched, her face pale with exhaustion. Around her, wounded crew worked with bare hands to keep systems alive. Children huddled in the corner, whispering in fear as the black enemy ships drew closer. One of her officers whispered, "Captain, they're moving into attack formation." Alara's voice was calm, though her heart pounded in her chest. "Then this is it. Ready the pods. If they fire, launch the children first." Suddenly, a new signal lit up the comms. A deep, steady voice filled the room. "This is Commander Eric Voss of the Defiance. Hold your position, Solace. Reinforcements are here." Cheers erupted across the Solace. Tears ran down the faces of the wounded. Hope returned, sharp and burning. Alara closed her eyes, whispering, "We're not alone." Moments later, the Defiance ripped out of hyperspace like a beast unchained. Its black hull glimmered with blue fire, its cannons charged and ready. The shadow fleet of unknown attackers shifted at once, breaking formation, their silent shapes circling cautiously. On the bridge of the Defiance, Eric's voice thundered. "Target the lead ship. Fire on my command." The cannons roared, shaking the stars. A beam of burning light struck the nearest shadow ship, ripping it apart in a blaze of fire. For the first time since the ambush began, the attackers faltered. Their silence cracked as their ships scattered, evasive maneuvers breaking their perfect calm. Eric leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You thought you could slaughter medics and vanish into the dark? Now face Earth's fury." The Defiance cut through the battlefield, weapons blazing, tearing through shadow ships one by one. Survivors on the Solace watched with wide eyes, their fear replaced with awe. The galaxy had forgotten Earth's strength, but now it returned, fierce and merciless. But the enemy was not broken yet. In the Fortress of Shadows, the enemy leader watched the battle unfold on his black screens. He did not flinch when his ships burned. Instead, he smiled. "They took the bait," he whispered. "Send in the second wave." At once, dozens of new ships emerged from the void. Larger, darker, armed with weapons Earth had never seen. Their formation closed around the Defiance, cutting off its escape. On the bridge, alarm screamed. Officers shouted, "Commander, more ships incoming." Dozens of them. Eric's jaw tightened. He looked at the Solace, crippled and helpless behind him. He looked at the shadow fleet surrounding his dreadnought. "Then we fight until the last gun falls silent," he said. The stars lit up again as the second wave of attackers moved in. The battle in deep space burned like a storm of fire and shadows. The Defiance, Earth's mighty dreadnought, fired its cannons with thunderous rage. Each shot ripped an enemy ship into pieces, scattering debris across the stars. Survivors aboard the crippled Solace cheered every blast, their hope growing with each victory. But on the Defiance's bridge, Commander Eric Voss knew something was wrong. "Report," he demanded. 4 enemy ships destroyed. 6 more heavily damaged, an officer replied. Eric's eyes narrowed. "And their formation?" The officer hesitated. "Still perfect, Commander. They're holding back." Eric gritted his teeth. The shadows weren't fighting to win. They were waiting. Then it came. A ripple tore across the void, like space itself shattering. Dozens, no, hundreds, of new ships emerged from the black. They were larger, faster, deadlier, their hulls marked with glowing red symbols no one recognized. The first ambush had been nothing but bait. On the bridge, alarms wailed. Multiple contacts. Enemy reinforcements, 200 ships and climbing. The crew froze. 200 against 1. Against them. Eric's voice cut through the panic like steel. "Stay sharp. Protect the Solace. No one breaks through." The crew obeyed, fear melting into grim focus. If this was a trap, then they would break it. Inside the Solace, Captain Alara watched the second wave unfold on her cracked screens. Her blood ran cold. "We're finished," one of her officers whispered. Alara shook her head. "Not while Earth still breathes. Signal the Defiance. Tell them." Before she could finish, a massive shockwave slammed into the ship. Consoles exploded, sparks rained down, and the lights flickered out. Children screamed in the dark as the Solace drifted helplessly. Alara gripped the railing, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Emergency power. Keep the shields alive. If we die fighting." Back on the Defiance, Eric's hands tightened around the command chair. He had seen ambushes before, but this was different. This was planned with precision. Someone had studied Earth, had waited for the moment to strike, and had chosen the rescue fleet because it carried not soldiers, but healers. "Commander," his tactical officer said, pale with fear. "This isn't random piracy. This is strategy." Eric nodded slowly. "A trap. And we walked right into it." The enemy fleet began its advance, their red symbols pulsing brighter with each movement. Their formation tightened, cutting off all escape routes. The Defiance was a lion surrounded by wolves. "Bring the main batteries online," Eric ordered. "We'll show them Earth doesn't run." The first clash shook the galaxy. The Defiance unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, tearing through the nearest wave of attackers. Enemy ships shattered, burning wreckage scattering like meteors. But for every ship destroyed, 2 more closed in. The bridge shook as the Defiance took hits across its shields. Sparks flew, crewmen screamed, smoke filled the air. "Shields at 70%, someone shouted. "Engines holding, but we can't outrun them. Commander, we're surrounded." Eric stood tall, refusing to bend. "Then we make them bleed for every inch." But deep inside, he knew the truth. This wasn't just about the Defiance. It wasn't even about the Solace. This was about Earth itself. Whoever these shadow enemies were, they wanted to break humanity's spirit. To show the galaxy that Earth was weak, that its fleets could be crushed like insects. And if they succeeded, Earth would stand alone. Eric's jaw clenched. Not on his watch. In the war chamber back on Earth, the Supreme Council watched the unfolding nightmare. Screens showed the Defiance surrounded, fire bursting from its hull, yet still fighting like a beast unleashed. General Kane slammed the table. "Send reinforcements now." Chancellor Lyra shook her head, fear in her eyes. "We don't know who they are. We don't know how far this trap goes. If we send more ships, we could lose everything." "They're slaughtering our people," Kane roared. "We cannot sit idle." But another council member whispered what none wanted to say. Perhaps this was the goal all along. To draw Earth's strength into the open. To learn our weapons. Our limits. Silence filled the chamber. Back at the battlefield, the Defiance fought with fury. Its cannons roared, its engines burned, its crew refused to surrender. Each explosion lit the void, proof that Earth was still strong. But the enemy pressed harder, their endless numbers closing in. Hull breaches spread, fires burned unchecked, and casualty reports filled the air. On the Solace, Alara whispered to her crew, "Hold on. They're buying us time." Her officer looked at her with wide eyes. "Time for what?" Alara's voice was quiet, but certain. "For Earth to awaken." And somewhere, beyond the battlefield, signals spread across the stars. Not just cries for help, but warnings. Messages encoded in fire and blood. Earth had been ambushed. Earth had been tested. And now Earth would answer. The Defiance bled fire into the black. Its shields cracked, its hull groaned, and still the ship fought like a beast refusing the chain. Commander Eric Voss stood tall on the bridge, smoke rising around him, his eyes fixed on the endless enemy swarm. Every shot from Earth's dreadnought destroyed another foe. But every victory came at a cost. Crew lay wounded on the floor, consoles sparked, alarms screamed. The Defiance was dying, but it was not yet dead. "Commander," the tactical officer shouted. "We've lost the portside batteries. Shields down to 20%. Eric's hand tightened on the chair. His voice was iron. Then we'll fight with what we have left. No surrender. On the crippled Solace, Captain Alara clung to the railing as the ship drifted, powerless. She could only watch as the Defiance battled alone against impossible odds. Her crew whispered in despair, but Alara's eyes burned with something else. Faith. They think this ends here, she said softly. They don't know Earth. Far away, in Earth's war chamber, silence had fallen. The Council watched the slaughter in grim horror. The Shadow Fleet pressed in, overwhelming, endless. The Defiance could not hold much longer. General Kane slammed his fist on the table. Enough waiting. We send reinforcements now. Chancellor Lyra's voice trembled. If this is a trap, Kane, we could lose our entire fleet. That's what they want. But Kane's reply was fire. And if we do nothing, then we lose our people, our future, our soul. Earth does not abandon her own. The Council argued, voices clashing like swords. Then suddenly the great doors opened. All eyes turned. An old figure stepped in, dressed not in the robes of a politician, but the black uniform of a soldier long retired. His voice was steady, but his presence shook the chamber. It's time, he said. Awaken the Black Fleet. Gasps spread across the room. The Black Fleet. Earth's greatest secret, hidden even from most of its people. Warships forged in silence, buried beneath the oceans and mountains, waiting for the day Earth itself was threatened. Chancellor Lyra whispered, "We swore never to reveal them." The old man's eyes were cold steel. "Swear all you want. Today Earth dies or Earth fights." Moments later, across Earth's skies and seas, titanic doors opened. From under the Pacific Ocean, colossal shadows rose, ships larger than cities, their black hulls glowing with ancient energy. From beneath the Sahara, desert sand trembled as towers lifted into the sky, transforming into war machines of impossible scale. The Black Fleet had awakened. In orbit, satellites flared alive, their hidden weapons unlocking after centuries of silence. Across the galaxy, watchers gasped as Earth revealed the truth. It had never been defenseless. It had been preparing. Back at the battlefield, the Defiance was moments from collapse. Flames raged through its decks, hull breaches tore open, and the enemy fleet closed in for the kill. Eric gritted his teeth. If this is the end, then let history remember we did not bow. The tactical officer cried out, "Commander, incoming contacts." Dozens, no, hundreds. Eric turned, expecting more enemies. Instead, his eyes widened. Out of hyperspace, Black Titans emerged, Earth's Black Fleet. They came like gods of war, silent and vast, each ship dwarfing even the Defiance. Their weapons lit the void with blinding fury, ripping through the enemy swarm as if the shadows were made of glass. The battlefield shook as the Black Fleet unleashed its wrath. On the Solace, Alara's crew stared in shock. "By the stars," one whispered. "We had these all along." Alara smiled faintly, her face pale from exhaustion, but her heart filled with fire. "Never underestimate Earth." The Shadow Fleet faltered. Their perfect formation broke as Earth's secret armada tore through their ranks. For the first time, the hunters became the hunted. On the enemy command ship, hidden deep within the swarm, alien officers hissed in alarm. Their red symbols flickered wildly as reports came in. "Impossible," one snarled. "The humans, they were supposed to be weak." Another replied with cold dread, "No, they were hiding. And we have awoken something we cannot control." On the Defiance, cheers erupted as the Black Fleet cut a burning path through the shadows. But Eric did not cheer. His eyes narrowed. This battle was not over. The trap had failed, yes, but the enemy had revealed themselves with purpose. Whoever commanded them would not stop here. He turned to his crew, voice firm. "Signal Earth. Tell them we need answers. Who are these enemies? And why strike now?" In the war chamber, the Council received the transmission. But before they could respond, a chilling message arrived across every channel. The enemy commander's face filled the screens. Alien, monstrous, eyes glowing like embers. Its voice was calm, cold, and certain. Children of Earth, you believe your secrets make you strong. But we have waited longer than your history remembers. We are the architects. We built your prisons. We shaped your wars. We knew this day would come. The chamber froze in horror. The architects. A name whispered only in fragments of forgotten history, dismissed as legend. The alien leaned forward, its voice echoing like a death sentence. Your Black Fleet is not salvation. It is proof. Proof that you are dangerous. And for that, Earth must burn. The transmission ended. The void was silent after the architect's message. No one moved. No one spoke. The weight of those words crushed every heart that heard them. They've been watching us, whispered Chancellor Lyra. All this time, guiding, controlling. General Kane's jaw was iron. Then it ends today. They call themselves architects?
Fine.
We'll show them the house they built cannot contain us anymore. In orbit, the Black Fleet tore through the remnants of the enemy swarm. But suddenly, the stars changed. One by one, enormous rifts opened in the sky. Through them came shapes so massive they dwarfed even Earth's titans. Monstrous ships, city-sized, wrapped in living armor, weapons glowing like newborn suns. The true power of the architects had arrived. Across Earth's skies, every screen, every channel, every device flickered with the same warning. Surrender now, and some of you may live. Resist, and none will. The message was not spoken. It was felt, burning inside every human mind. On the Defiance, Commander Eric steadied himself as the enemy's main force entered the field. His ship was broken, bleeding, yet he stood unflinching. They think fear will win them this war, he said, his voice carrying across the ruined bridge. They don't understand. Fear is the fire that makes us stronger. The crew, battered and exhausted, lifted their heads. For the first time, the architects had not cowed their prey, they had awakened them. The Black Fleet surged forward, engines roaring, weapons blazing. But against the architects' colossal ships, even Earth's greatest weapons struggled. Every blast that struck their hulls burned bright, but the giants endured. Concentrate all fire on their lead vessel, Eric ordered. We bring one of them down, the others will bleed. Cannons thundered, missiles streaked, and for a moment, the impossible seemed close. Then the architect struck back. Beams of pure destruction swept across the battlefield, carving through Earth's warships. A single shot shattered 3 vessels at once, turning them to dust. The Defiance shook violently as energy tore past its hull, sending men and women sprawling. Eric gripped the chair, teeth clenched. Hold the line. Earth stands through us. On the Solace, Alara and her crew worked desperately, patching systems, forcing engines back to life. Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. We can't match their power. But power isn't everything. They don't know us. They don't know what we'll do to survive. Her eyes narrowed. A plan was forming. Mad, desperate, but their only chance. In Earth's war chamber, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as fleets reported losses. Council members shouted over each other. Then the old soldier who had called the Black Fleet spoke again. His voice silenced them all. We cannot win this battle ship against ship. But we can win another way. The architects have revealed themselves at last. That means they can be touched. That means they can be killed. He turned to the generals. Send the order. All ships. Strike not at their weapons, not at their shields. Strike at their command core. Cut off the head, and the beast dies. The order spread like wildfire. Across the burning battlefield, captains and crews shifted their fire. Every missile, every cannon, every desperate last shot aimed for one thing, the glowing heart at the center of the architect's lead ship. The giant roared, beams lashing out, tearing through dozens of human vessels. But Earth did not break. One by one, crippled ships rammed their targets, exploding in waves of fire. On the Defiance, Eric's tactical officer shouted over the noise. Commander, we've got 1 shot left, main cannon at full overload. If we fire, The ship won't survive. Eric's face hardened. His voice was calm, almost quiet. Then let history say the Defiance bought Earth another dawn. The Defiance turned toward the enemy Colossus. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches spread. The ship groaned like a dying titan, but still it moved forward. Target locked, the officer whispered. Eric stood tall, smoke swirling around him, and gave the final command. Fire. The cannon blazed. A beam of burning light cut across the void, slamming into the glowing core of the architect ship. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a soundless roar, the giant erupted. Light consumed the battlefield. The architect's lead vessel broke apart, fragments burning as they fell into the endless dark. The Black Fleet surged with renewed fury. Humanity, battered and bloodied, rallied behind the Defiance's sacrifice. One by one, more architect ships fell. Their formation wavered. Their arrogance cracked. On the remaining command vessel, the architect leader watched in silence. At last, it spoke, not with anger, but with something colder. Interesting. You are not what we shaped. You are something else. Something dangerous. Its red eyes narrowed. This war is not over. You have won a battle, humans. But you have earned an enemy that does not forget. With that, the architect fleet withdrew, vanishing into the rifts from which they came. Silence fell across the stars. Smoke and wreckage drifted in the void. The battlefield was littered with the dead, but Earth still lived. On the crippled Solace, Captain Alara whispered to her crew, voice raw with exhaustion. We held the line. We showed them who we are. On Earth, the war chamber sat in stunned quiet. They had survived, but the truth was clear. The galaxy was not safe, and the architects would return. General Kane broke the silence. Then we'll be ready. Next time, they won't face a secret fleet. They'll face all of us. In the quiet of space, a single fragment of the destroyed architect ship floated, glowing faintly. Deep inside, a signal pulsed. Not of defeat, not of surrender, but of warning, calling across the stars to forces yet unseen. Humanity had won the battle, but the war had only begun.